Hi, so please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Fred Lambert. I'm the editor-in-chief of Electrek, a leading publication about electric vehicle in the US.
Yes. So what's your take on the electrification in US now, after the elections?
After the election, yeah. So in the US, we're already lagging behind the rest of the world when it comes to electrification. We're at just short of 10% market share for new vehicles, which compared to Europe is very low, especially the top European market like the Norway, Sweden, and whatnot. And also, it's mainly California. So when you remove California from the equation in the U.S., and you're, I wouldn't know exactly, but closer to 5% in Europe to 10, that's for sure.
Yes.
Because I think California is at 24%, which is twice the national rate. And Tesla is still, Tesla's market share has been going down last few years as more automakers have been bringing out electric vehicles, but it's still at around 50% market share, which means that if Tesla doesn't do well, the rest of the market doesn't do well. And the last few years, EV sales have been still going up, but a little bit slower. And that's despite having the $7,500 tax credit, which as a point of sale credit too now is much more efficient. And now this is most likely than not going away. Trump has said that he wants to take it away. He has to have Congress approval for it, but the Republicans have Congress. It's not a done deal exactly because some of these incentives are good for some red states, some Republican states, because a lot of the European automakers have built their factories to build EVs there. And the only reason they did that was because the tax credit came with the requirement that you needed to have production or assembly in the US. So maybe there's a chance there, but I don't think so. I think that it's most likely not going away next year. Now the thing is, what's going to be the actual impact on this? And a weird thing is like Tesla is the biggest beneficiary of those. Well, Tesla buyers are the biggest beneficiary of that incentive right now. And Tesla has officially backed the removal of the tax credit, which is a bit of a surprise because they actually lobbied for it with the Biden administration when they came to power. So a few years ago, they were lobbying for it. Now they say they don't want it. And probably has to do with Elon Musk.
So why don't they want it anymore?
Okay, well, I mean, the position is not exactly clear, but Elon has sort of hinted that the way he sees it is that it's going to hurt other automakers more than it's going to hurt Tesla.
Yeah.
Which is problematic because Tesla's original mission was to accelerate the advent of electrification for the entire industry. The idea is like they cannot do it alone. 100 million cars are built every year. No automakers can make that. So you have to just push the other automakers to do it, which they did. If we're being honest, they did. And but now, now they're in a situation where the automakers are starting to do good. The legacy automakers are starting to come up with pretty good cars that are being competitive with Tesla on the consumer level. But the cost level, Tesla is still leading by a wide margin. So if you remove that incentive in the US, Tesla is probably still going to be able to sell cars because they're going to be able to reduce their prices a little bit further, take lower gross margin, which the other automakers cannot do. Because the only thing they would do with that would be with the credits, the emissions credits, which are probably also going away with the Trump administration, though that would be a little bit more difficult because it's at the state level. So there's a chance that that's going to stay. We don't know yet. He tried to kill it last time and it didn't work. So maybe it doesn't work this time either. So I don't know. But the idea is like Tesla is going to withstand a price reduction, another price war better than the other. And then their market share, which went from 80% a few years ago to 50%, most likely going to go back up with EVs. And the other automakers are going to turn back to gasoline-powered cars, maybe some hybrids, some plug-in hybrids, but BEVs are likely going to slow down quite a bit, I think, in the US.
Yes. So Tesla will be the worker in the US.
I mean, I think that some EV programs are going to survive, at least temporarily. But yeah, long term, there's a real chance that the other American automakers lose their expertise in electric vehicles because their main market, their domestic market, cannot buy the cars, are not incentivized to buy the cars, and they make money on their gasoline one, so they will focus on that. And that will make them lose market share in other countries too, because if they become smaller vehicle programs for them in China or in Europe, it's not worth as much for them. So it's a problem, really.
So they have invested a lot to sort of reach to the level of Tesla, and now they will not be able to sell it because they are too expensive. So they sort of will close down the ambition on producing or developing new electric cars. That will mean that they will not be able to compete on the market, maybe in Europe or in China, where the industries are still developing new cars
and still moving forward with EV adoption.
The tech race is on in Europe, and of course, mainly in China. That you have to be competitive to sell.
Yeah.
If the home market is gone from the American industry on EVs, then they will not compete in the rest of the world.
That's the logic, and Tesla has some data to back them with that, because with the COVID, with the pandemic, they did withstand the pandemic a lot better than the other automakers during the supply chain issues. So because of their cost. So this is a different situation, but the same base is going to be there. Like the cost going to have to go down, and Tesla has been better at doing that than the other automakers because they reach volume sooner, large EV volume sooner than others, and you have to give them credit for that. They were early, but you have to also take into account that they were early, but they were the biggest beneficiary of those incentives. So they use this as a ladder to get past the hurdles and to reach volume production. And now that they're past them, and to be fair, the others were late to it and they had to follow up, but now they are in this hurdle of trying to get past the hump of volume production and get into a positive gross margin. And now Tesla is just pulling the ladder behind them so that they cannot get past that hump. And as someone who's a big fan of electrification, that's very disappointing from a company that presented itself for years as just being pro-environment, tried to curb climate change, and accelerate EV adoption.
So, there's a risk that US will be Tesla and gasoline cars.
I think, I don't have a crystal ball or anything, but I think this is a possible scenario. I think Elon Musk sees like Tesla as being this giant, not monopoly, but there's another word for it, like oligopoly or something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure in English what it is. Yes. But there's a possibility that that's what he sees, like Tesla just being this giant corporation that owns most of the market, and the rest, because EV adoption is going to continue. It's just going to slow down in the US for sure, but it's going to continue. And Tesla's going to have most of the market share.
So do you think there's a chance that Chinese automakers will come and produce EVs in US?
I don't. With Trump, it's going to be more difficult. But at the same time, they had an opportunity with Biden. Biden put the tariffs, 100% tariffs for the importation of vehicles, but there's still an opportunity to establish manufacturing in the US. And before the elections, that's not what they were doing. They were more looking at Mexico and then produce in Mexico and then send them to the US. And those plans appear to have stalled now that the election.
Like Mexico will not be.
They will get tariffs too. So it doesn't seem to be the option now. So it really depends on. There's still perception issues in the US of even if it's manufactured in the US, if it's still a Chinese company. There's a whole TikTok thing going on right now that's they might be banned by the end of January, though Trump said that he will not ban them, even though he was the first one to try to ban them in his previous administration. So it's not clear. Maybe he's trying to predict what Trump is going to do is not an easy thing. Like, I don't want to be in this guy's mind, and it's a hard thing to predict, but technically, there could be an opportunity for the Chinese to come, but they would need to manufacture in the US for sure. It's just there needs to be some kind of pathway for them to actually own the manufacturing capabilities in the US.
But Volvo and Polestar, they are Chinese.
Yeah.
They are producing in US.
Yes, that's true. But so I don't know. Sometimes it's just a perception issue in the U.S. Like Volvo is 100% owned by the Chinese now, but it's a Swedish brand. Or at least it used to be, or the perception is still there. So sometimes it's just a perception issue, and it's not like the Chinese cars are that bad too. Like, they're getting so much better, and there's some good ones now. So I think they could definitely build themselves a big market in the US, especially at their cost advantage. But there's going to be some market. It's going to be a big marketing effort to make it work.
But if the GM and Ford and Stellantis are scaling back on their EV investments, then the Chinese might come to US and produce cars that are up to standard technically.
Yeah.
really modern cars, and then it will hurt the U.S. industry even more.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's this removal of the tax credit is giving an opportunity. Everyone that has good costs that can make money off cheaper electric vehicles right now is going to benefit from it, which is wouldn't be. It's a weird question for me because like I'm a capitalist. Like I know like money runs the world, and you need to sell a product that's profitable. And relying on government incentive is not a sustainable long term, I think. However, I also understand that there's a cost to the environment and a financial cost to the world when you burn gas. Like I think humans contribute to climate change in a significant way. I think the data is pretty clear on that front. So I think that when you sell a gasoline car, there's an unpriced external cost that is not accounted for in the market. So if you're a free market person, the free market only works if you price the external cost of your product. So I don't know what Sweden does. I know Norway has been doing this very well, where instead of giving incentives to buy electric cars, they price those external costs on gasoline car, which balance things out. And that works very well, I think. And a country that does that, of course, Norway is very rich, but a country that does that is the leading country in EV adoption, almost at 100% rate. Like there's something that is going well there. And so it's not, I give money to electric cars. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying make it a fair market. And to make it a fair market, you have to price those externalities. So right now, I think it makes sense to incentivize electric vehicles and until they reach volume, which Tesla has already done.
So if the EV adoptions will slow down even more in the US, how will they cope with the climate challenges?
Unfortunately, like I don't think they care about that. I think in the US, there's a big part of the population that don't think that humans contribute to climate change in a significant way. And even though, I mean, we don't have a winter right now, like in the Northeast, you used to have like a real winter. Now, if you get snow like a few times a year, like last year, I took out my snowblower 2 times. Oh. It's like normally it's like 8-10 times a winter. Like it's 2 times. Like it's something is happening for sure. And but some people don't see it that way, or they see it as a good thing. Like they say, oh, more carbon emission is good for the plants and everything. And they're technically right. Like the Earth is greener. Now there's more carbon emission, but you're playing a weird game. Like you're playing like a science experiment of like, let's see what happens. It's like, the outcome might not be good. So yeah, the other thing that's interesting with that is like the U.S. approach, especially the conservative side of the U.S. approach to curbing climate emissions, their argument against it has always been, why should we do it? Because China and India is not doing it, and we're gonna make ourselves uncompetitive for it. And that has been because the US, or at least the perception in the US, is that they don't see a cost themselves to climate change, which is changing now. You know, the hurricane season was very hard this year, and it's been harder and harder in the recent year. And a lot of climate issues are starting to affect the US directly in the wider part of the US now, not just the coastlines. So I think there's a hope, at least on that front, that if they feel the impact, they might do it. And at the same time, it's hard to make that argument anymore because China is beating them like crazy when it comes to electric vehicles, when it comes to solar adoption, when it comes to renewable energy. So like you don't have an argument anymore. Like you have to do something. Like you're the one that's not doing anything anymore.
So one thing I don't understand, if you have higher tariffs from China and everything, and the US are importing a lot of goods and cars and whatever, from China, parts, whatever, the price will go up and the inflation will go up. So how will that be a good thing for China, for US?
This is a mystery to me. Like I don't know how people don't understand, like, or even Trump himself doesn't seem to understand how tariffs work. He thinks the other countries pay them. It's paid at the port. The tariffs are paid at the port.
By the consumer.
By the consumer, by the companies that are buying the parts and everything. So it makes absolutely zero sense to me. It will increase inflation, like you said. It will increase cost to consumers. It will make American company less competitive on export that relies on parts. it might give a boost to the US in terms of manufacturing because they will try to find an alternative. But historically, it hasn't been that much the case. Historically, the US is not big on manufacturing. We lost a lot of manufacturing expertise. Like you can basically fill this courtyard with manufacturing engineers in some states in the US. Well, you take any states in China and it will fill an entire stadium of manufacturing engineers. So that is the difference maker here. Like we need the expertise. So you think that the tariffs will fix that, but you need to go way further than that. You need to go all the way back to education, really, and even like a cultural change that you need to have with everything. So I think they're seeing too short term, and it will backfire soon.
So Mexico, back to that. The tariffs will hurt the American car companies a lot because they have a lot of production in Mexico. How would that play out?
I mean, Ford invested big in making the Mach-E in Mexico, and that's going to change now. I assume that they're gonna shift to someplace else. They already been like a lot of American automakers are just shifting things around between their factories. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that, and they're going to try to adapt to the tariffs. And so Mexico, like the good example is Tesla too. Tesla just a few years ago announced a giant factory in Mexico, and then they said that they're going to build it in 9 months, like they did in Shanghai. You know, when they did it in Shanghai. So, and they brought the same engineers from there. So I'm like, all right, this is a possibility. And then, out of nowhere, Elon starts supporting Trump. And then Trump says, I'm going to put tariff in China. So, like Elon says, all right, we're going to put the brakes on Mexico, even though the Mexican government started investing in infrastructure around the plant because it was in the middle of the desert in Nuevo León. So they really pulled a fast one on the Mexican government on this one.
Yes.
And I saw recently the Mexican minister, I don't know if the state minister of or the national minister of economy said that he wanted to talk to Elon to see if it's still happening, and they're still delusional that it's going to happen. I think they need to realize that it's not happening, like that factory is not happening.
So what is the reaction from GM, Ford, and Stellantis after election and all these tariffs and things?
I think there's a lot of still wait and see going on because, you know, what Trump says he's going to do and what Trump is going to do are often completely different. So, and also a lot of this needs Congress approval too. And, you know, the Republican Party is a bit, you know, they support Trump because he's the only one that can win for them right now. But it's not, they don't support all his policies, so maybe there's gonna be some lobbying going around to try to, you know, soften the blow a little bit on things. And a lot of automakers we're backing in the unions too. We're backing the Democrats, so now they have to like change face and like which they do every time. So it's not new for them.
In a way, incentives, it will hurt them, but are they okay with that?
That's a good question. I would need so. Most of them were more concerned about having the incentive when the incentive came back, because like it's making a long story short, the incentive was limited to 200,000 units per manufacturer, and that was a bad way to make things happen because you punish early adopters basically. So when the Biden administration reformed the incentives. That's when there was a lot of negotiation from the automakers going on, and I think most automakers were pro the incentive, but they wanted to include, like, make sure like I want my plug-in hybrids to work with that. So they try to make the regulation work with the size of the battery pack, for example, to work, or if it was range, then the range needs to work with their plug-in hybrids. So I think there's going to be maybe some of that going on, but at the same time, I don't know, because JD Vance, who's going to be vice president. When he was a senator or congressman, I forget what he was before, he introduced a bill that not only removed the incentive, but added an incentive to buy gasoline-powered cars as long as they were U.S. made.
That's nice.
Which is the same thing. It was the U.S. made for the electric version too. Yeah. So like when I said about pricing external costs, like that's the complete opposite. Like you're incentivizing people to pollute more. It makes no sense. So I don't know where obviously the automakers, the US automakers other than Tesla would love that. Tesla would not love that though. So I don't think it's gonna happen, because it looks like, if you look who has the ear of Trump, it's Tesla right now. It's not these automakers. So at least I think that's not gonna happen, which is somewhat of a good news, but it's not impossible.
So self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Elon will.
Elon is completely delusional about that.
Yeah.
I have a Tesla that has full self-driving, and I had the full self-driving program for the last 3-4 years now, and I've seen a roughly 3x improvement in miles between disengagement over this period of time. So 100% improvement every few years, every year. But now, so you have to go.
Soon.
Yeah. So right now it's about 250 miles between disengagement, and they just recently set out the goal for 600,000 miles, which is the NHTSA, the U.S. Transportation Organization, miles between human accidents. That's the rate, which I think is a good goal to have.
Yeah.
600 miles, but now they're at 250. So you need a 2,500x improvement in miles between disengagement to get there, which they think they're going to get there in Q2 next year in 2025, when they are at a rate of like 3x in the last 3 years. Now 2,500x increase. I just don't see it happening. Like if with the full self-driving program with Tesla, if it was developed in a vacuum, if they weren't selling it to people, if Elon wasn't saying every year that it's going to come unsupervised next year, you're going to be able to sleep in the car and everything, I think most people would be super impressed by it, because if you try it, it is impressive.
Yes.
But it cannot just work 99% of the time. It needs to work 99.99999999999% of the time, and those 99999 are the tough part.
Yeah.
The 99% is not the tough part. It's the other one, and Elon knows that too, which is the crazy thing, because he said it multiple times. That's the tough part. He called it the March of the Nines. So I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Great. We have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So what's your final take on U.S. car market in the 2-3 years?
In the 2-3 years time frame, I think EV sales are going to slow down. I think automakers are going to change their approach and rely more on the plug-in hybrids, which can be good if you use the plug-in hybrids correctly. If you charge it every night and everything, it can be good. It's just a lot of people don't do it like that. I think Tesla is going to are going to go back up their market share in the BEV market because of it, and I think the consumer in the U.S. is going to be the loser, because they're going to have fewer options for all electric vehicles, which are the most fun vehicles I think out there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Super.
Thank you. That was nice.